We will begin chapter 27. It's been a few weeks. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We are discussing, we're troubleshooting some of the problems that can come up. In the first 25 chapters of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe described to us what does it mean to have a relationship with God. It's close to you. I don't want to call it easy, but it's simple. All we have to do is control ourselves, is realize that every single action is an opportunity to either do what God wants or to refrain from not doing something God doesn't want us to do. And the way we can make sure to consistently do that is by having a relationship, a love, and an awe, and a fear of God, and you're golden. For more on that, you can review the first 25 chapters of Tanya. But then the Alter Rebbe said, even when you know all the facts, and you know in theory how to get it done, you can still be struggling. And the Tanya was written as a book version of meetings, hundreds of meetings that the Alter Rebbe had with his students, with his followers, with his Hasidim. And they would come and say, Rebbe, I'm struggling. Okay. What is the source of your struggle? Why is it so hard to do what's right? And so the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe says in the beginning of chapter 26, the biggest enemy of progress, the biggest enemy of winning the battle, anybody remember?
Not the struggle.
What's
the struggle?
What's stopping us? When someone's facing a struggle, let's zoom into some very, very specific action. I am not doing, I'm sitting here and someone comes over to me with a really juicy piece of gossip and I want to listen. So right now there's a battle in my soul. My godly soul says, ignore them, walk away, don't partake. My animal soul says, this is going to be really entertaining. Of course I want it. And so there's a struggle now. And now I know, the Alter Rebbe discussed at length all the different tools that I can think about and know that with this moment, if I give in to this temptation, I'm severing my relationship with God, just like idol worship and all the things that we've discussed. But why do I still lose that battle?
Temptation.
So the temptation is the struggle. But why do I lose the struggle to temptation? Sadness. Sadness. The Alter Rebbe starts off chapter 26 and says, if you have two wrestlers and they're fighting, whether on the White House lawn or not, but you have two wrestlers that are fighting, and what happens? One of them is stronger, yet that one that's stronger can still lose. Why? Because the other one is more agile, is more upbeat, is more active, can run circles around them. Brute strength is not necessarily the answer, which means that when we're struggling with sadness, when we're struggling with laziness, I'm specifically not saying the word depression, because as we explained at length last time, these days there's a clinical diagnosis of someone who has a chemical imbalance, depression, and that has to be dealt with differently. But someone is sad, they're feeling down. That is going to make them lose the battle. If you're feeling sad, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling lazy, you're not going to be able to. If you're feeling lethargic, you're not going to be able to win the battle. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe starts to go through, why are you feeling sad? Let's deal with it. And in chapter 26, which we described as one of the hardest chapters to actually implement for most people, the Alter Rebbe said, if you're sad because physically things aren't going well, you're struggling in health, in your family, in monetarily, if there's a struggle in your life, the Alter Rebbe describes how this is something we have to embrace. We have to embrace that opportunity to connect to God on a deeper level. And as we discussed, the different levels and the different ideas expressed within that. I don't want to rehash it here because it'll take us another hour. Then the Alter Rebbe said, what if you're struggling? What if you're sad because you've sinned? You look back at your life and say, I have messed up so much. I've sinned so many times. The Alter Rebbe said, if you're getting those feelings of sadness in the middle of the day, that's not a good thing. Because yes, it's a very useful feeling to feel sad about your past sins. That's a great motivator to do better and to repent, but it has to be at the right time.
So what do you do about it if in the middle of the day
push it away?
You feel that sadness.
Push it away.
Because of what I have done.
Push it away.
Or failed to do.
Push it away. If you're feeling sad, say, all right, that is an interesting feeling. Now is not the time. In a few hours before I go to bed, I'll reflect on it and I'll use it as a motivator to do better. And Gershon is asking a really good question. I want to reiterate. We're talking here about someone, which is really all of us, that has the ability to shut down a thought. There was a story of someone, a follower of the Alter Rebbe, that came to talk with him about struggles that they were having in their service of God. And they show up, it's the middle of the night, in a white Russian night, it's freezing cold, it's snowing, and they come knocking on the Alter Rebbe's door. They're knocking, and nobody's answering. All right, so the guy bundles off to the shul, he sleeps on a bench, it's warm at least. The next morning he shows up to the Alter Rebbe, and he says, I need some help. He says, what do you need help with? He says, well, I struggle. I have all of these thoughts that are coming into my mind, all of these temptations, these evil, wicked thoughts, and I can't stop them. The Alter Rebbe said, but I already answered you. He said, you already answered me. I showed up last night and I didn't see anyone. I couldn't even get into your house. The Alter Rebbe said, that exactly was my answer. You have to recognize that just as I am the head of household in my house, and therefore I decide who gets let in, you are in charge of your thoughts, and you can just say no to a thought. You don't have to think it. And this is where we differentiate. The temptation, that we can't control. You'll get the temptation. But the actual thought, to dwell on it, to actually go down that rabbit hole mentally, that is completely in your control. And that's what the Alter Rebbe said in last chapter, that if you're sad about physical things, reflect on what it means about our relationship with God and the opportunity and the connection that we have with God as we experience a lack in the physical. If you're sad about the spiritual state of your life, the fact that you've done sins, all the mistakes that you've made, recognize that this is not a good thing to be thinking right now. Why not? Because if you get sad about your sins, what are you likely to do? Keep on sinning. Right? If you're feeling depressed, I like to say, if someone's trying to eat healthier and they're feeling sad and they messed up, they had a donut. For many people, that sadness, that disappointment in themselves will make them go out and buy a dozen donuts and eat it, right? Because it's just like you lose that motivation, you lose that, and that is what the Alter Rebbe is saying that thought is a good thought. It's good to be disappointed in what you've done because that's what motivates you to shuvah, to become better, to grow. That's great. But it has to be at the specific times when you are in charge. You conjure up those feelings, you think about what you've done, and then you get emotional about it, and that's good. But if it's happening to you in the middle of a random Thursday morning while you're trying to learn Tanya, and you're distracted by your disappointment and all the things that you've done to yourself, and all the things that you've done, that's not a healthy thing.
But sometimes you're dealing with an emotion, and you don't know why you have that emotion, right? Mm-hmm. And I find the best thing is go do something, go read something, get your mind, different, because you can't think of too many things at the same time.
Absolutely. The Talmud gives that advice. It says if that menuvel, if that lowlife tries to start wrestling with you, referring to the Yetzer Hara, if you start getting temptations, what should you do? Go learn Torah. On a very basic level, you can only think about one thing at a time. So if you distract yourself by Torah learning, that's great. So now you're thinking about something else. You're not thinking about the temptation to go gossip with your friends. On a deeper level, Torah itself has a healing property. It has a refuge. The Torah is called a refuge. When you're struggling in life, run to Torah, and Torah will be your safe space. And so that's why Len is absolutely right. If you're struggling with a thought, with a temptation, you could do something about it. Which is, think about something else. Go learn Torah. Go do something else. Don't dwell on these negative thoughts. Yes, exactly. The Alter Rebbe then goes on to describe, in this chapter, a different type of frustration. Why are you feeling low? Right? Because that's what these chapters the Alter Rebbe is discussing. You're feeling sad, and therefore that's stopping you from accomplishing what you can accomplish and from winning the battle. What is the reason you're feeling sad in this chapter? You're feeling sad, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling annoyed, you're feeling bad about the fact that you're still struggling. Now, I'm not talking about that you've done sins, right? That was last chapter. Here, we're talking about your X amount of year olds. We'll talk about someone hypothetically. They're 100 years old. For the last 10 decades, they've struggled with a certain temptation. They've been winning the battle against gossip for the last 100 years, and yet they still have that temptation. It's incredibly frustrating that they feel like they can't move on. They can't grow. They feel like, and when I say they, I'm talking about all of us, I have been winning this battle. Because remember, this book is talking about a Beinoni. Talking about someone who's winning the battle. Talking about someone who every single time the temptation comes up, they're able to just say no, they're able to change their thought, they're able to win. But it's 10 years later, and they're still faced with the same battle. And they're feeling like they haven't grown. And that could be incredibly frustrating, incredibly disappointing, and incredibly saddening. When we feel like we're not making progress, when we feel like, how could it be that I've been succeeding, I've been connecting to God, I've been learning, I've been praying, I've been doing all the things I should be doing, and I'm still the same, in Yiddish there's an expression, Bal Taivanik. A taiva is a temptation. A Bal Taiva is someone who's, has a lot of temptations. I'm still the same glutton that I was 10 years ago. I'm still tempted with the same things. That frustration is what the Alter Rebbe is addressing in this chapter, and this is on page 1 on the bottom. Ve'im ha'atzvus einem midaigas avenes, elam mehurim reim v'tayvus nefes machshavtoi. If, however, his sadness does not stem from anxiety over sins that he has committed, but from the fact that sinful thoughts and desires enter his mind. I'm frustrated that I'm still having these thoughts. Continuing on page 2. Hine. Im nefels le'shalei b'shas aveda, ela be'ez askei ba'asakav v'derech eretz u'kahai gavna. So this chapter, the Alter Rebbe is going to be discussing if these thoughts occur to him not during the service of God, but while he's occupied with his own affairs and with mundane matters and the like. It's a random Thursday afternoon, you're doing your shopping, you're in the middle of Trader Joe's, and suddenly you're faced with a temptation, whatever it might be. Maybe you're in the middle of a thing, and you're like, so for someone who struggles with this, they're like, what if I helped myself to one of these chocolate bars and just stuck it in my pocket and didn't pay for it? Now, this is someone, they would never actually give in to that kind of temptation. They're an upstanding thing, they've never stolen anything in their life, but in that moment, they get so disappointed with themselves. Me? I'm having that kind of temptation? Next chapter, we're going to talk about if these thoughts, if these desires come to him while he's praying. That's going to be next chapter. While he's praying or while he's serving God. But here we're talking about you're middle of shopping, you're middle of doing something random, you're living your life, and suddenly you're faced with the temptation. And so you're sad. So the Alter Rebbe is going to address this in 3 points. Point number 1 is relish the opportunity to do a mitzvah. Why does it make you feel sad? It should make you feel happy. You have an opportunity to do a mitzvah right now. Which mitzvah is that? Turning down a temptation is a mitzvah. And you know what? You, as a struggler, as a Beinoni wannabe, you are uniquely qualified to do this mitzvah.
That's one of the 630.
Yeah, it is. In fact, we say it every single day, at least once, in the Shema.
Take care, lest your heart be lured astray, and you bow down and worship alien gods.
Yeah, exactly. We'll read that inside. Adarabah. He should, on the contrary, be happy in his lot. For although these sinful thoughts enter his mind, he averts his attention from them. By averting his mind from sinful thoughts, he fulfills the injunction, you shall not follow after your heart and after your eyes, by which you go astray. It's one of the mitzvahs of the Torah. Don't follow your temptations. You know who can never do that mitzvah? A tzaddik. A tzaddik no longer has temptations. So they can no longer do the mitzvah of don't follow your temptations. So if you're standing in the middle of Trader Joe's and there's a delicious looking kosher chocolate bar and you're like, you know what? What if I just slipped that into my pocket? And immediately, of course you didn't act on it. But immediately you turn to yourself and say, how could I have done that? How could I have had that thought? How could I have had the temptation? You know what you should tell yourself? Lucky me. By refusing that temptation, I just did a mitzvah. Instead of making you feel sad or making you feel disappointed, relish the opportunity to do a mitzvah. The above verse surely does not speak of tzaddikim, referring to them, God forbid, as going astray. But of Beinanim like himself, in whose mind there do enter erotic thoughts, whether of an innocent nature or otherwise. Obviously, the examples that I use in this class are usually of the more innocent nature, but the more common temptations that we're talking about are usually more sensual, more erotic, and those are the things that that we, as the Beinani, are uniquely qualified to turn down. And when he averts his mind from them, he fulfills this injunction. And you know what?
It makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
When you're able to do that.
Absolutely. You just did a mitzvah. You know, there's a line, you know, every problem is an opportunity, right? And when you really, you know, it's not necessarily true, and it's very overgeneralizing. No, thank you. But when we talk about the mitzvah, when we talk about the opportunity to connect to God, you are doing a mitzvah right now. Now, we're going to continue. This is point 1 out of 3. There are some other things that we're going to talk about. This feeling of disappointment, this feeling of sadness when you were faced with this juvenile temptation, it's out of place. Why? Number 1, you should be feeling happy because you're the opportunity to do a mitzvah. As we continue on page 3, V'amru Razal, Yashru v'lei avad aveda neisim leischar ki'ilu asa mitzvah. Our sages have said, when one passively refrains from sin, he is rewarded as though he has actively performed a mitzvah. You did a mitzvah by sitting and doing nothing. Why? Because you were tempted to do a sin. Right? I always laugh that right now we're all doing so many mitzvahs because we're not murdering anyone, we're not stealing anything. Right? We're doing so many mitzvahs now. I don't know if that's true when we're not, just sitting around randomly. But definitely, if you're faced with that temptation, however juvenile it seems, however out of place it seems, you just did a mitzvah by not doing an avera. Consequently, he should rejoice in his compliance with the injunction just as he does when performing actual positive precept. You are doing a mitzvah right now. So point number 1, why shouldn't you feel sad when you suddenly have a juvenile temptation that you thought you've moved past from? It's an opportunity to do a mitzvah. Mazel tov to you. The second point, and here the Alter Rebbe gets a little bit harsh. And the Alter Rebbe says, why do you feel sad? Why do you feel disappointed in yourself? Right? We just had an election the other day, last week. Do I feel disappointed that I didn't win the election? Of course not. It's so out of the realm of who I am. It's not who I am. I didn't run. That's not what I'm looking to do in my life. Why would I feel disappointed about that? Right? Do you feel disappointed every time you don't win the lottery? I mean, it would be nice. You can dream. You can hope.
You didn't try.
Right, maybe. Right, but if you bought a ticket and do you feel disappointment? No. Listen, it's very nice to have dreams and stuff, but you have to be realistic. Who are you? And what is your, what path you have in life? We feel disappointed when it's something we should have been doing. I should be better than this. And I'm not. Right? If someone ran and got a lot of votes, but they didn't actually win, all right, they can feel disappointed because that's their, that's where they were heading. That's what they're supposed to, they could have won, they should have won. And here the Alter Rebbe says, you're disappointed about this temptation because you think that you're better than that temptation. But you're not. You're not a tzaddik. The only people who are better than temptation are tzaddikim. You're a Beinani. Recognize your place. Why do we feel disappointed when I have a temptation? Because I thought that I was better than this. And the Alter Rebbe says, that was your first mistake. That was really, in a certain sense, that was ego. That was egotistical. Because you didn't recognize your place. You thought that you're a tzaddik. You thought that you're better than this. You have to recognize that you are a Beinani. And a Beinani will struggle. As he continues, Va'adrabah, ha'atzvus u'megasus haruach. On the contrary, such sadness is due to conceit. She'enei makir mekemei, va'al kein yeder levavai al she'enei b'madregas tzaddik. For he does not know his place, and that is why he is distressed, because he has not attained the level of a tzaddik. For whom such foolish thoughts do not occur. For if he were to recognize his station, that he is very far from the rank of tzaddik, halavai v'halavai haya beinani, v'leyasher kol yamav afilu sha'achas. That he would And would that he be a Beinoni and not a Rasha for even a single moment throughout his life?
Is a tzaddik somebody who becomes or is born?
That is a great question. In our conversations, we describe the tzaddik as someone who is destined to be a tzaddik. Not born that way. They do have to, the example that we always use for that is King David. King David says, I became...
You told us that
Right.
story. That was good.
Right. So, not
And for
necessarily...
me, a tzaddik is not fully human.
Yeah.
Because temptation and
By
doing
a
the
lo-
right thing and getting satisfaction from that,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want to be a tzaddik.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, a tzaddik is really...
I like the possibility that I could rob a bank. I got the guns, but I'm not going to do it because it's a bad thing.
That's exactly what we're talking about here. You relish the opportunity, and we're going to continue to discuss. I'm so happy this came up now because we're going to continue to discuss that difference about relishing
But a
our.
tzaddik,
Yes.
but a tzaddik doesn't think like you're thinking. He's not saying, I wish I was a baby. He's saying, now that I'm a tzaddik, I'm doing things different than everybody else. So he's not confused.
No, I'm not saying he's confused. I just
And
want to
he's
be
not
like that. I don't
right.
think it's fully human.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, it is human.
Well,
biologically,
Yes.
they are human,
Yes.
right? I don't want them to think a tzaddik is walking around with anything, but psychologically, spiritually, they're on a very different journey
What
than
are
we
the
are.
alter Rebbes?
Yeah, the Rebbes are a great example of they are tzaddikim. What they accomplish, what they do, the life that they're living, again, it's a very physical right. The Rebbe ate, the Rebbe drank, the Rebbe slept. All of these things are true. But the life that they live, the journey that they were on in their relationship with God is very, very different to ours, which is why Len is describing it as us humans. What defines a human? Our struggle, right? We have free choice, free
Challenges
will. We have
and
challenges.
overcoming
Absolutely. That's that is our humanity. A tzaddik is above that. A tzaddik is beyond that.
Okay, so I don't quite understand. The tzaddik, was he born to be a tzaddik? Did he become a tzaddik once he started growing up?
So, a tzaddik is born destined to be a tzaddik. They are destined to get rid. I want to go back for a second.
So is he at some stage a Benoni who wants to aspire to the higher level?
I'm sure when the altar Rebbe was a little kid, I'm sure his mother yelled at him, and I'm sure he did things that were wrong.
That is correct. And the reason why it's good to recognize that is because they're human. We read stories about King David sinning, right? There's a lot of the timeline. I'm going to King David because he's the one that said the words, Libi chalal bekirbi. My heart is empty. Why was his heart empty? Because he had killed his animal soul. We don't have that ability to kill our animal soul. We have the ability to subdue our animal soul. And so even though a tzaddik, and again, I'm not an expert on tzaddik, this is the book of Beinonis. I don't have the book of tzaddikim, and so I can't fully describe the exact process. The way I understand it is that a tzaddik is born with an animal soul and a godly soul, just like all of us. But the tzaddik has the ability to kill, to destroy, to get rid of his animal soul. And then he's only left with his godly soul, which means he doesn't have temptations like we do. He doesn't have struggles like we do. He's on his own journey.
But as all of us,
Yes.
whatever level at which we have grown to aspire to meet all of these mitzvahs, we are in a sense trying to get toward that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the way he used those words, halavai. Halavai is like, if only it would be. Our end goal is to be a Beinoni, right? Because what does a Beinoni do? A Beinoni is someone who succeeds in every challenge. If only we were to be that great of actually winning every single battle.
Okay.
But that is our end goal. That's what we're moving towards, exactly as Joy just said. We're moving towards that goal. What is our end goal? Not to get rid of temptations. That's a tzaddik. Our end goal is to beat every temptation. And so again, coming back to this Beinoni, who's sitting in Trader Joe's, and he's tempted with petty theft. And he says, you know what if I just slip this into my pocket? And immediately he goes, how could I have thought that? I haven't sinned in 30 years. Why am I suddenly having these temptations? The Alter Rebbe says, you know why you're disappointed about that? Because you think that you're better than you are. You think that you're a tzaddik, and really, you're a Beinoni. Continuing on the bottom of the page, then surely this is the due measure of the Beinoni and their task. To subdue the evil impulse and the thought that rises from the heart to the mind, and to completely avert his mind from it, repulsing, as it were, with both hands, as explained above in chapter 12. What is the mission of the Beinoni? To win every battle, not to win the war, because winning the war means destroying the Yetzer Hara. We don't have that ability. The mission of the Beinoni is, yes, maybe for 70 or 80 or 100 or 150, however long the Beinoni lives, they're constantly in that struggle. Yes?
Is there a time when the Benoni says, I'm fed up with being Benoni, the Benoni is, in modern terms, the silver medal. I want the gold medal. And the gold medal is being a tzaddik. Enough of this Benoni business. How do I become a tzaddik?
This is exactly...
Perfecting the Beinoni, right? But perfecting the going forward.
That is exactly what the Alter Rebbe says. That is not a thought the Beinoni should have. Because that's not, the way you described it as a gold medal and a silver medal is not true. It's like a marathon runner saying, I can't believe I didn't win the bicycle race. You're not running in that race. What are you talking about? For the Beinoni, the gold medal is winning every single battle. Right? Going back to the election example. If you're running for mayor, the gold medal is winning the race to be mayor. Are there positions that are better than that? Yes. But that's not the race that you're running right now. Right? If the mayor wins the race to be mayor and says, man, I can't believe I didn't win the race to be governor. What are you talking about? You're not running in that race. That's what the Alter Rebbe is describing here. Gershon is right, as in that it could be a feeling of disappointment. If the Beinoni starts feeling fed up and disappointed, he has to read this chapter again. And remember to recognize what race he's running in. And so far, for this Beinoni who's struggling with this sadness, we have two things so far. Number one is don't be sad. Relish the opportunity to do a mitzvah that a tzaddik can't even do. Number two is recognize that why do you feel frustrated? Why do you feel disappointed? Because you think you're running in a different race. You think you're running to be a tzaddik, and really your goal is to be the best Beinoni possible. And here comes number three, which is, I think, the most important and the most powerful one. Anybody here have a treadmill in their home? A treadmill.
I have a treadmill.
It's one of those things, I think it's the most expensive closet that you can own. You just pile up clothing. But someone who uses a treadmill. For someone who uses a treadmill, imagine someone's watching you walk on the treadmill, and they're like, what did you just accomplish in the last hour? You didn't get anywhere. You started in your living room and you're still in your living room.
You've got no guilt when you eat something, a nice piece of cake.
Why do you feel that way? Because the goal was never to walk a mile, was not to move a mile in a different direction. The walking itself was the goal, right? The difference between someone who walks a mile to go to the grocery store and the person who walks a mile on their treadmill, person who's walking a mile to go to the grocery store, they need to get somewhere. And so they look at the person on the treadmill and say, you didn't go anywhere, you didn't get it, you didn't accomplish any goals.
Where's the achievement?
What's the achievement? What does a person on the treadmill
Listen
say?
to a podcast, and then at least you're not sitting there just listening to something.
Why? Because my goal wasn't to go anywhere. The walking itself was the goal. Right? When you're walking on a treadmill, the walking itself is the goal. And that is also the final thing that this Beinoni has to remember. The struggle itself is the goal. What is our purpose in life? To be perfect? No.
One is to teach.
To teach, to grow, right? All the things. But if we want to distill, because teaching is an accomplishment. Teaching is something that we can do, is an action. But our mission in life.
That's what you described the chosen people as.
100%. And this is where it gets confusing, because depending, asking such a broad question, what's the goal in life? What's the mission? What's our mission in life?
Yeah.
I'm going to distill it, in a very, very broad statement.
Okay.
Our mission in life is not to be perfect, but to succeed.
At goals.
At goals.
that you said.
Not to be perfect. The tzaddik, his mission in life is to be perfect. For us, around this table, at least talking about myself, for the Beinoni, our mission in life is to succeed as much as possible. Which means, if you're 150 years old, you haven't sinned in the last 150 years, and you're standing in the grocery aisle, and you're faced with a temptation, what if I just slip this in my pocket? You might think to yourself, I'm imperfect. That's incredibly disappointing. To that comes the answer, it's only disappointing because you're failing to recognize what you're really trying to do here, which is the struggle itself. Succeeding in the struggle itself is the goal. The point is not to reach a destination, to be perfect. The point is to walk on the treadmill, to succeed at the struggle itself. The walking itself is the goal. Why? Because for the Beinoni, every single time we subdue, not destroy, every single time we subdue the Sitra Achra, we're going to bring up that word again, so I'm going to translate it again. Sitra Achra means the other side. I have the side of God, and I have the other side. My Yetzer Hara, my evil inclination, my animal soul, whatever you want to call it. Every single time I subdue my animal soul, the other side, I've accomplished the mission. As it continues on page 4, Ubechol dechia udechia shemedachta b'machshavtei iskafia siter achra l'sata. With every repulsion of this thought from his mind, the siter achra is suppressed here below in this world. And when we accomplish something like that, you know what happens on high? Everything that we do 1%, God does the exact same thing. He mirrors our actions, except he does it on a godly scale. He does it 10 times over, 1,000,000 times over. So when we subdue the other side down here a little bit, what does God do on high? He subdues the other side the way only God could. And since the arousal from below, right, when we do something, we are causing a chain reaction. We do something here, and that arouses God, produces a corresponding arousal above. The Sitra Achra above in the supernal world, the root of the Sitra Achra in this world, which soars like an eagle, is also suppressed. Thus, realizing the verse, though you soar aloft like an eagle, I will yet bring you down from there, says God. Indeed, the Zohar in Parshas Truma extols the divine satisfaction that occurs when the Sitra Achra is subdued here below. Thereby God's glory rises above all, more than by any other praise, and this ascent is greater than all else, etc. Why is it?
What do you mean that God is doing?
So I'm going to go through the whole chain reaction. I'm feeling right now, I'm in Trader Joe's, and I am faced with this tiny temptation. And it was never even like, I'm not actually going to steal a chocolate bar, let's be real. But I had the temptation. Immediately I got very disappointed. What should I remember? This is an incredible act. This is ultimately my mission in life. But why is it so important? What am I really accomplishing? All I did is I said no to stealing a chocolate bar. In the grand scheme of the world, did I accomplish anything? No. It's such a tiny thing. So the Alter Rebbe says we have to realize what's happening. You did one small leap for man. What was that small leap for man? You said no to your temptation a tiny little bit. What did God do? God mirrors our action, but magnified. So when we do one small thing, God does the same thing, but on a much broader scale. We subdued the Sitra Achra, the Klippa, we destroyed it, we knocked it down a peg. So God does the same thing with the Sitra Achra on a global level. Which, when we say, the reason why we use this vague term of the other side, you know what's included in this? The angel of death. The prosecutors who are trying to get us in trouble. The forces of evil, all of the Satan, all of these things are included in this general term of the Sitra Achra. You did it a little bit, God does the same thing on a much broader scale. And you know what happens when the Sitra Achra is subdued? What takes that place? Godliness. When one side gets weaker, godliness is more revealed. The less Sitra Achra there is, the more godliness there is. And so you want to know what you accomplished by saying no to your tiny chocolate bar temptation? You accomplished a great deal. You created a chain reaction where God subdued the Sitra Achra on a global level, and therefore godliness is more revealed. And therefore, as he continues on page 5, V'lechein al yipa leva adam alav v'leileva mayad. Therefore, you should not feel depressed or very troubled at heart. Right? Very troubled. You should feel a little bit troubled. It's always good to remember where you are and to be realistic about, what you've done. Because if you don't care at all, if you say, "Oh, it's good to have temptations," then you start becoming numb to them and you don't care about them anymore. That's what the translation says in the parentheses. But don't beat yourself up. Don't be so disappointed. Even if he be engaged all his days in this conflict, even if your entire life you're battling the same battle, don't beat yourself up. Don't be disappointed. Why? For perhaps this is what he was created for, and this is the service demanded of him, to subdue the Sitra Achra constantly. Perhaps. The Alter Rebbe's perhaps, I think, could be for us a guarantee. If you are struggling with the same thing day in and day out, that's a sign that that is your mission in life. To constantly say no to that temptation. If we use an example that's not by any stretch a one-to-one example, but there are certain people which struggle with alcoholism, for example. Right? And an alcoholic knows that whether it's been 1 day since their last drink or 25 years since their last drink, they are an alcoholic. They have to constantly be saying no. That is the way we have to view our relationship with the temptations. Because if I'm getting this temptation day in and day out, it's not something I grow out of. It's not something I graduate out of. Because this is who I am. I am the struggler. I am someone that my mission in life is to please God by succeeding in everyday temptations. That's my mission. If I don't expect to grow out of it, then I'm not going to be disappointed when I don't. And here, the Alter Rebbe is going to go back and answer a question from chapter 1. I'm sure everyone remembers from about a year ago when we started chapter 1. The Alter
Has it been a year?
Not yet, almost. We started, I think, in September. But the Alter Rebbe asked a bunch of questions, right? That was sort of the first half of chapter 1 was a bunch of questions, and slowly we've been answering them. One of the questions that we asked was a verse from Job. Job, for those that are not familiar with the book of Job. Job. The book of Job, the major theme is that Eiv has problems, and he starts questioning God. And it's a lot of conversations and back and forth, and we're not going to go into it. But one of the things that he asks God is, God, it's not fair. You have created wicked men, and you have created tzaddikim. Barasat tzaddikim, barasat rishayim. You have created tzaddikim, you have created rishayim. It's not fair. And God answers whatever God answers. But the Alter Rebbe in chapter 1 says, what do you mean? We all have free choice. God isn't the one who decides if I'm going to be a rasha or a tzaddik. What's Eov saying that it's not fair? Now we can understand.
Who decides?
We do, by our actions. However, what does God decide? Which path we're on. God created some people to be tzaddikim, that they can graduate from their temptations. And God created some people to be rishayim, not in the sense that they fail constantly, but that they are tempted constantly. Right? God has created us with two different paths. Some of us, not some of us, but some of humanity, were created to become tzaddikim, to graduate from that life, to graduate from the temptations.
They still had to choose if they wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. They also have to have free choice. As you said, the Rabbeim, they struggled when they were kids. But eventually, they grow out of it. Some of us, talking around the table, probably all of us, are in the track of Rishayim. We never graduate from the temptations. We are constantly in that struggle. Continuing on the bottom of the page, concerning this, Job said to God, "You have created wicked men." And as we discussed, what are you talking about? There's no such, God doesn't decide if we're wicked or evil. Continuing on page 6, the implication of Job's statement is not that they were created to actually be wicked, God forbid, i.e. sinful. Rather, but that there should occur to them in their thoughts and musings alone, which occurs to the wicked. You can be the best Beinoni who never actually sins, but you and the Russia have the same temptations, right? What's the difference? Is he says yes and you say no, but the temptation is the same, which is why Eov describes this as you're living the life of a Russia, because you have the exact same temptations and thoughts. And they shall eternally wage war to avert their minds from them in order to subjugate the Sitra Achra. And yet, they will never be able to annihilate the Sitra Achra in their souls completely, for this is accomplished by the tzaddikim. Only the tzaddik can destroy his Yetzer Hara. All of us, we live with it. We coexist with our Yetzer Hara.
I wasn't sure the tzaddik even recognized the power of an animal soul. I thought they were beyond it.
They are. Why are they beyond it? Because they've destroyed it.
Yes, but I thought you had just said something with respect to how they felt about it. How they felt about improper decisions.
They don't have temptations, right? Yeah. We talking about myself, I am tempted. I'm not going to tell you about what, but let's say standing in Trader Joe's, I'm tempted to slide a chocolate bar into my pocket. Okay. The tzaddik never even has that temptation. Why not? What's the difference between me and him? Is I have an animal soul that sends me temptations.
Yeah.
The tzaddik does not. This difference of the tzaddik and the Russia, or the tzaddik and the Beinoni, are two different services of God that we do.
Okay.
Right? My service of God is through the struggle. The tzaddik service of God is through pleasure or through whatever he does. This is described, the difference between these two things is described as two different types of dishes that you can enjoy. Food. We're going to have a few minutes of culinary class.
Of what?
Culinary class.
Oh,
cooking
good.
class.
I like that.
There are two types of dishes that people enjoy. One, to be very, very generalized, is a candy. It's sweet, it's delicious, it's yummy. Everyone from a tiny baby to an adult can enjoy a lollipop. But then there's...
I don't know, I miss my shrimp, I'll tell you that.
Then there are things that are what we might call a more developed palate. Things that are sour or spicy or briny. Are they pleasurable? Yeah. Is it a pleasant experience that your mouth is on fire? That your mouth is on fire. You ate a spicy pepper. Is it a pleasant experience?
I'm a big fan of jalapenos.
But I want to psychoanalyze that for a second. It's enjoyable, but it's not it's not the same kind of enjoyment as candy, right? Candy is smooth, it's sweet.
It's a satisfaction.
It's a satisfaction. It's an enjoyment. But I'm going to use this word pleasure. It's not a lay back and enjoy. There's a spiciness to it. There's a little bit of resistance, and that's where you get a lot more polarized, right? People do enjoy spicy. They don't enjoy spicy. Briny, right? Not everyone enjoys pickles, and some people can't live with it, right? It's a lot more of a developed palate, and everyone's developed differently in different tolerance levels. This difference of these two types of delicacies, a tray of candy and a tray of jalapeno peppers, is these two types of pleasures that we can give God. For a tzaddik, the pleasure that they give God is like candy. There's no resistance, there's nothing to overcome, there's no tension, it's just smooth and sweet and delicious. The pleasure that we give God by overcoming our temptations is like the little bit of heat, is the more developed palate. These two delicacies, the story that we're going to attribute them to, is the story of Isaac and Esav. Isaac wants to give his son the blessing, and for whatever reason, he wanted to give it to Esav. He didn't recognize what Esav was, or whatever. And so he tells Esav, go out and make me delicacies. Go make me some dinner, and when you bring me the dinner, I'll bless you. The words he uses specifically are delicacies, plural. And we'll get to this. We'll get to this on the next page. So I'll describe it now. But these delicacies are used in Kabbalistical thought to say this is not about, every verse in the Torah has many levels of meaning. So this is not about Yitzchak talking to Esav. This is about God talking to all of us, saying there are two types of delicacies that I enjoy, as we're about to see. But for now, we'll continue in the middle of page 6.
God had the angels before he created man.
Yes.
And the angels have no temptation.
Yes.
They just do what God wants. So he created man to have freedom of choice.
Yes.
And therefore we have good and we have evil. So then if you're trying to become an angel, it's not really what God wants from human beings.
So I will, a tzaddik sort of exists between these two, because there is something that a tzaddik does, because again, they have free choice, they have to get to that level, and there's something else that they accomplish as well, beyond what the angels accomplish. The angels are so resistantless. They're so, there's absolutely no friction there. That there is pleasure, it's beautiful singing, it's beautiful experiences, but there's nothing to it. The tzaddik has a little bit more, but I want to back up for a second and say you're absolutely right. We accomplish the role of a human a lot more than the tzaddik does. What is the tzaddik's mission? We keep on getting into this thing of trying to understand what role the tzaddik plays. I don't want to get into that right now because that's sort of beyond our discussion. We're talking about the Beinoni. But the tzaddik's pleasure that he gives God is a lot more similar to the angels than it is to us. You are correct about that. There are two kinds of divine pleasure. Echad, mibitel hasitr achel lagamri, v'ishapcha mimiru misikol mechashecha l'nohera aydei tzadikim. One is from the complete annihilation of the sitra achra, and the conversion of bitter to sweet and from darkness to light, which is accomplished by tzadikim. They accomplish everything. There's no bitterness there. It's just everything is sweet. There's no wickedness. There's no badness at all. V'hashenis kat iskafia sitra achra ba'oid b'takvei ugvrasim magbia atzma kenesher. And the second, when the sitra achra is subdued, when it's still at its strongest and most powerful, soaring like an eagle. Did you get rid of the bitterness, or did you harness the bitterness, or the spiciness, or whatever it is? Continue on page 7. And from this height, God topples it in response to the human initiative, i.e. as a result of one's effort in subduing the and the soul. This is accomplished by the Beinoni. This is now we're getting to the story of the two delicacies that Isaac wanted. This is alluded to in the verse, and make me delicacies such as I love. Right? That's what Isaac told Esav. Yitzchak told Esav, make me these delicacies. Matamim, loshin rabim, shnei mini nachas ruach. The word matamim, delicacies, is written in the plural, indicating two kinds of pleasures. V'hu maimer hashchina levanav, levanel klos yisrael. These words are the charge of the Shekhinah to its children, the community of Israel, as explained in Tikkun Zohar. So if you ever learn Zohar, you'll come across this. That what are these two delicacies? What are the two things that the Shekhinah, that God wants from us? Just as with material foods, there are two types of delicacy, two kinds of delicacies. Echad, one of sweet and luscious foods, and the other of sharp or sour articles, which are unpleasant to eat in their natural state. They have been well spiced and prepared so that they have become delicacies which revive the soul. So too, there are two kinds of spiritual delicacies, right? The two types of physical delicacies is you have a tray of candy, or you have a tray of deliciously prepared pickles. Now, vinegar is not something you would enjoy plain. Peppercorns is not something you'd enjoy plain. Right? If you ever made pickles, all the raw ingredients, besides for the cucumbers, taste bad. They taste sharp. They're not something that you would enjoy straight up. but by processing it properly, by preparing it in the right way, you create an even more complex, an even more developed experience than just eating candy straight out of the bag. So too, in the spiritual sense, there are two types of pleasures that we can give God. There is the tzaddik's version, where everything is smooth and sweet and delicious and there's no friction, there's no complexity at all. And then there's the pleasure that we give God. As the Beinoni, when we succeed in our struggles, the pleasure that we give God is a lot more complex, a lot more mature, and a lot more powerful than just the candy that the tzaddik gives God. Continuing on page 8. V'zehu she'amar HaKasuv kol poyal Hashem l'mayne gamer sheim le'yom ra'ah. This is indicated in the verse. The Lord has made everything for his sake, even the wicked for the day of evil. Wickedness was created for God? How can that be? Perush sheyasher mirishiv yaser rasha le'yom v'yar l'mayla. The Rasha, when he's rebelling against God, is not doing things with the way God wants it. It's not for God's sake. But when he overcomes those temptations, he takes those same evil inclinations that would make him a Rasha, and he harnesses it, and he prepares it in the right way. So suddenly, this means, however, that he should repent from his evil and turn his evil into the light above. When the Sitra Achra is subdued and the glory of God is uplifted on high. So, as Beinanim, what do we learn in this chapter so far? We have struggles. And it might be that we've been really, really good and we haven't sinned in 30 years, and yet I'm standing in the supermarket and I'm suddenly faced with a temptation. A juvenile, disappointing temptation. What is my reaction to that? Well, when we started the chapter, it was disappointment. It was sadness. I can't believe I'm still stuck at this level. To that, the Alter Rebbe gave 3 things. First of all, relish the opportunity to do a mitzvah. Second of all, recognize that the reason why you're feeling disappointed is because you thought you ran for governor and really you're running for mayor. You thought you're a tzaddik and really you're a Beinoni. And third of all, recognize that this is your entire life mission. Every single opportunity that you have to just say no, to shut down your temptations, is an opportunity to accomplish the greatest things and give God the greatest pleasure.
So what do you think God's greatest finish for all of us is?
Greatest what?
Finish as the world.
To transform the world.
Yes.
But there's 2 ways of transforming
This
the
is
wickedness in the world.
What we're heading for.
Yes. But there's 2 ways that can be accomplished. The world right now is a mixture of good and evil. Imperfect. One way you can refine the world is to get rid of the evil, destroy it. Another way is to subdue it, to get it under control and to harness it as well. That's what God wants us to do as the Beinoni. Transform the wickedness of the world, subdue it, and to harness it.
But in my ignorance, the Messiah,
Yes.
God's going to decide when he comes.
Yes.
My question is, what does this world look like?
When Mashiach comes,
Yeah.
imagine
Because
this world.
we're talking about how we should behave.
Yeah.
And who we are, and the small numbers of tzaddiks and the grand numbers of Beinonis.
So I will remind what we mentioned about a half hour ago that we do something on a little scale, and then God does it on a massive scale.
Yeah.
We subdue wickedness a little bit, and God does it on a global scale. Right? God says, "You open up for me like the head of a needle, and I'll open up like the biggest doors in the world." So when Mashiach comes, me and you are not going to subdue all the evil in the world. It's just not possible. We're me and you, and the world is the world.
But you just said when he comes,
Yes.
we are like Len and I were just giving up shrimp, so to speak.
Yes.
You know, so is it just do we become better Beinonies by not wanting shrimp anymore before
No.
before the Messiah comes?
No. Until Mashiach comes, you're going to want to eat it. And you should relish that, because every time you want it, it's an opportunity to say no.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. You are going, and you know what that is, and I think, because it was brought up around the table, so I'm gonna use that example. You might think to yourself, it's been X amount of years since I had shrimp. Why am I still tempted with shrimp? I thought I'm beyond this. I'm keeping kosher for who knows how long. Why do I still have that temptation?
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking about in this chapter. And the answer is because every time you have the temptation, it's the opportunity to
Right.
say no and to transform yourself and the world.
So does
I
God,
want to just finish up what Joy, the final version of that
Yes.
is God subdues all the wickedness in the world. And so after Mashiach comes, the world physically is going to look the same. We'll still be people that have to put on clothing and walk around and experience the world as it is physically. But imagine the world with no wickedness, with no jealousy, with no
Right.
friction, with no evil,
No temptation.
no temptation. Everyone just wants the best for everyone. That's the world of Mashiach.
So does that become all Sodics?
Yeah. Because suddenly we don't have the temptation anymore. Because God removes the temptation. The big thing that's going to happen is God is going to kill
Going to be a Sodic.
the evil inclination.
so we all become tzaddik?
If we make the world perfect, nothing is going to get done.
Exactly. The time of Mashiach is not a time for action. You're 100% right. It's a time to relish and reap our rewards, which at that point
For
is...
eternity then.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, this is very striking.
Which is why we
opposite.
got to get to work. Because as soon as Mashiach comes, it's too late. Right? Once...
Well, he's transforming.
He's-
So,
But the thing is, what brings Mashiach in Judaism, then we can say that the world is as bad, it is so bad that we need Mashiach and he comes. Or the world is so good and he comes
Right.
because we're so...
So-
we have both concepts in Judaism, don't we?
So the answer is, the Mashiach doesn't come because the world is too bad or too good. Mashiach comes because we've completed our work. We've accomplished our goal. Whatever our goal is, which is probably arbitrary.
most of us have.
The
all
world,
of us.
globally, we've accomplished our goal. Whatever, God decides, we've done enough work.
So we need more Chabads.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point. here.
Yeah. And
Okay.
every one of us around the
Yeah.
table has to be a Chabad, and has to be a Chabad house, and has to be, because what we have to do is, we
Got
have,
it.
yes, absolutely. Gershon, yes, you had a question.
Well, it was,
We
so God
help.
says, I know that all of you want the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to give you the Messiah, but I don't think you deserve it yet. You're not worthy of it. So what can we do to make ourselves worthy to deserve the Messiah?
So I'm going to agree and disagree with you at the same time.
Okay?
Because the Rebbe, especially as the years went on, the Rebbe taught us that ultimately we've done it. Why is God withholding Mashiach at this point? I have no idea. Which is why we have to turn to God and demand Mashiach. There's a very famous song that the Rebbe would sing often, especially with kids. The words were, "We want Mashiach now." Those words. We want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. Why are we demanding from God? Because we've done all the work. We've gone through all the hardships. We've done all the work. It's time. And yet, Mashiach is not yet here. What does that mean for us? It means we have to demand Mashiach. One of the big campaigns that the Rebbe did was about demanding Mashiach. It's time for Mashiach. But for whatever reason, God's withholding it. So we got to do work still. We gotta still continue to just add in light.
Yeah.
There's the legacy. I don't like using the word legacy, because legacy is usually a word we use where after someone is gone, this is what they've left us. The Rebbe is still very much active and very much guiding us in a present sense. But the Rebbe's mission to us is to add a little bit of light. Why? Because the world has to be a little, maybe that one candle that we light will be the one that will finally make the world bright enough for Mashiach to come. Before we get too far off topic and too far over time, I want to just finish off with the last point of this chapter, which is, we spoke about saying no to the temptation of shrimp, or the temptation of stealing a chocolate bar. The Alter Rebbe adds now that saying no to any temptation is part of this journey, even if it's a permissible temptation. What if your temptation is not for shrimp? Your temptation is for kosher sushi. You have to ask yourself, why do I want this? If it's just to fulfill my own pleasures, even if it's allowed, it's still an opportunity to say no. And this harkens back to an idea that we expressed in the first the first dozen chapters of the Tanya, how everything in the world is either for God or against God. Which means there's obviously sin, right? Things that are not allowed are not allowed. But then there are things that are allowed, but I only want them for my own temptation. Is it a sin? No. There's no penalty. There's no problem with it. On paper, you can go and do what you want with it. But there's a higher level of refinement. Just because I want something, even if it's kosher, I don't have to say no. I don't have to say yes. There's a verse, Parshas Kedoshim. There's a Torah portion that says, you should be holy. And there's a lot of discussion, what does that mitzvah mean, to be holy? Is it to do a specific mitzvah? Is it to just do the mitzvahs? What do you mean? The mitzvahs all stand on their own. What is this? A special mitzvah? You should be holy. So the Ramban, Nachmanides, says that this is a mitzvah to refine ourselves even with things that are allowed. There's a line that Len loves. It's possible to be a low life with the permission of the Torah, right? A low life with the permission of the Torah. On paper, you're doing everything perfectly correct.
And you can still be a bastard.
And you could, I'll let you use that word. I'll use the word low life. Okay. A manuvel it's you could still be a glutton and everything is kosher. You could spend your entire life gorging yourself on food and alcohol and it's still kosher. You're not doing anything wrong. And that's where the mitzvah of you should be holy. You should be refined. Going through life, there's an expression that was used in the olden days of Hasidic times of this. What you're not allowed to do, of course you can't do them. But even when what you're allowed to do, you don't have to. Right? And that is this final thing about every opportunity that we have to say no to a temptation accomplishes a great deal. It refines us. It creates a chain reaction that God refines the world. That's definitely true for non-kosher, for things that are not allowed. But even things that are allowed, you don't have to. And here, this is what the Alter Rebbe continues on page 9. Furthermore, not only by fighting his evil thoughts does one subdue the Sitra Achra, but even in matters that are fully permissible. Every act of sacrificing one's impulse, even if only for a short while, i.e., if he delays partaking even the permissible and essential, with the intention of subduing the Sitra Achra in the left part of his heart. Right? I'm going to say an example now. This is not advice for life. Don't go home and start doing this. But it's a mindset that we can start thinking about. You're having supper. Your supper is burgers. Delicious. Kosher, delicious, healthy, good to go. But you want to make it even more delicious. So you add some ketchup or mustard or mayo, whatever that extra step, do you need it? No. You could have just as much nourishment without it. So why are you doing it? Because I want it. That, because I want it, is an opportunity to just say no. Is it as urgent as saying no to a sin? Of course not. But it's another opportunity to subdue my temptations. Even because temptation, right? Because my animal soul wants to have an even more delicious burger. Which means...
So our souls, these beautiful things that we four of us have, guide us subtly, very subtly.
Yeah.
But I'm not in the same category as you three. I'm around non-Jews 90% of the time. And when I say, please, I don't want any ice cream. And they say, well, why? I said, well, it's a long story, but you want to know? And then they say, well, why would that even make a difference? So in 1 minute, can you tell me what I say to them?
Yes.
Thanks.
God told me not to, and I'm listening to God.
Hey, your mom's going crazy.
That's it. Ultimately, whether
Half
it's...
of these people wouldn't even know
If they understand it, great. If not, that's their
I
loss.
tried to say, well, it develops your discipline.
Ab-
It teaches you restraint. It teaches you
That's
to
already-
choose.
it's-
To choose.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, Joy, is that you're describing this chapter of Tanya, but this is already minute 3, 4, and 5. In 1 minute, why am I saying no? Because God doesn't want me eating non-kosher, and so I'm saying no. What you're saying is absolutely correct. That's what we're adding here as well. That in addition to the mitzvah that we said in point 1, in addition to this being our life work, as you said in point 2, this also is an opportunity to subdue and to refine myself.
Yes.
Right? And this is a tremendous power that we have. You're going to eat it anyway. Push it off by a half hour. You're not starving, you're not low blood sugar. Push off your meal by an hour. Just because, why do I want to eat now? Because my body wants to eat now. So I'm telling my body no.
Just go hungry a little bit longer.
Again, not to an unhealthy, not to punish
No.
ourselves, but just to discipline ourselves. Not even ourselves, but to discipline our animal soul. As he continues, for example, he wants to eat, but delays his meal for an hour or less. And during that time, learn Torah. You want to eat right now? You're hungry? Tell your animal soul, I'm in charge. I'm going to learn Torah for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to eat. What did you accomplish? You had the exact same food, it's just 15 minutes later. True, but I refined myself. I trained myself a little bit, in these days, smartphones and technology has taken over this role. But just as I was growing up, there was a thing, the criticism for the younger generations was we were called the microwave generation. You want everything instantly. In 30 seconds or less, you want a fully cooked meal. Right?
Yeah.
It used to be, if you wanted food, you had to sit and cook it and prepare. Now we're the microwave generation, everything is hot and ready in 2 minutes. That's what we're training ourselves against. The ability to just tell myself, yes, it's kosher, and I'm going to eat it anyway, but I'm delaying it. I'm refining myself, and I'm training myself. Continuing on the bottom, as the Gemara states, the 4th hour is when all men eat, but the 6th hour is the mealtime for scholars. Why? Why do they eat 2 hours later? They would go hungry for 2 hours with this intention. Again, this is not a medical thing. They weren't low blood sugar. They weren't, about to faint. It was just the idea of, just because my body wants it, but my animal soul wants it, I'm better than that.
Why are they eating at 4 a.m.?
Not 4 a.m., after you got up. So 4 hours, right, if everyone, the day starts at 6. So 4 hours later at 10 a.m., that's when breakfast time is.
Lazy.
Exactly. So
You're
that
saying self-discipline.
self-discipline. This is what this chapter is. This part of the chapter is saying that the discipline that we started off saying that the discipline but regarding sin accomplishes all these great things. Rabbi says this discipline also accomplishes these great things, even in the permissible. It's just about refining ourselves, which in turn causes God to refine the world. Continuing on page 10. Even after the meal, they would study all day. You might think, what difference does it make if you eat at 10 a.m. or at 12 p.m.? Your whole day you're learning Torah. It's not like they were adding Torah study. After the meal, they'd anyway sit back down and learn more Torah. So what difference does it make? The difference is that they refined themselves, they taught themselves to wait. Similarly, if one restrains his mouth from saying things which he greatly desires to say concerning mundane matters, even where there is nothing wrong with the words per se, yet he refrains from speaking them precisely because he feels the desire to do so. You want to interject, you want to say something. You taught yourself not to. We're not talking about gossip or evil. We're just talking about you want to do something for no other purpose than just you want to do it. Refine yourself. Likewise, regarding the thoughts of his mind, he suppresses an urge to think about some mundane matter. Even the even the slightest subjugation of the Sitra Achar here below is the glory of God and His holiness is greatly elevated on high. From this holiness, a sublime holiness issues forth upon the man to assist him with great and powerful aid in the service of God. This is what our sages meant when they said, if a man consecrates himself a small measure here below, he is sanctified greatly from above. That he, in addition to the fact that you did a mitzvah, you refined yourself, you were a little bit holy, you also, again, you cause a chain reaction. You subdued your temptation, your sitra achra, which causes God to subdue the global sitra achra, giving you tremendous blessing and success. Continuing on page 11, the meaning of sanctify yourself, right? The verse says you should be holy, sanctify yourself. What does that mean? You should make yourself holy. That is to say, although in truth one is not holy and separated from the sitra achra, for the sitra achra in an animal soul is still, as it is a birth, at full strength and might, in the left part of his heart, the seat of the animal soul and evil inclination. Yet even at that level he subdues and masters the evil impulse and makes himself holy, separate from the sitra achra. Then, continuing the verse, you will be holy. What the Alter is saying here is that fake it till you make it. You might think to yourself, I like chocolate. I'm always going to want chocolate. What difference does it make if I withhold my chocolate for 20 minutes? The answer is, you just subdued your evil inclination for a little bit. You acted holy.
And that's a mitzvah.
And that's a mitzvah, and it's an opportunity to bring even more holiness into your life, and you become holy. Continuing on page 12, ultimately you will truly be holy and removed from the sitra achra, through being greatly sanctified from above, as quoted earlier in the Gemara, and through being aided above to expel the sitra achra from his heart little by little, so that even his heart will no longer have a desire for anything originating in the realm of the sitra achra. By refining ourselves, we cause that chain reaction. We do it a little bit, and God does it on a global scale, which can accomplish an incredible deal and actually push us to levels that we never thought possible on our own. And so in summary, chapter 27 reminds us that when we have temptation, don't be disappointed. That's our goal. It's an opportunity to do a mitzvah, and it's also the way that we accomplish these incredible things. Whether the temptation is in sin, definitely we shouldn't do it, but even in the permissible, delaying it or removing part of it is an incredible action of self-discipline, which accomplishes a great deal.
I think that's